Hello, this is Steve Watley from Adobe Systems, and it is my pleasure to be a special guest on the Creative Suite podcast. In this episode, I will show you how easy it is to use the 3D features in After Effects, and I do mean easy. Now, luckily, this podcast is sponsored by the Adobe Maxon Power Integration Tour. So if you're interested in learning more of what you'll see in this episode, and you want to learn how to integrate 3D animations into your workflow, then check out this tour
at tour.maxon3d.com
and join me and the Maxon guys on the road. So let's get started with After Effects 3D. I'm going to start with a new solid. Now this new solid can be any size or shape, doesn't matter. The point here is that it behaves as it normally would as a 2D layer. Now the change happens when you go down to this area right here, and that area in the timeline is where you turn on or off 3D layers. And you simply click in this area. I want you to see it, so let me zoom up here. You simply click right there. That turns that layer into 3D. Now let's go back and notice also that there's a change that's happened on the layer. Now let's look at that. This change is the X, Y, and Z manipulators that appear now on everything that's 3D in After Effects. So whether that be a light, a camera, or a layer, you're going to see the Y when you go over the top of that, an X when you go over here, and a Z when you go here. And these let you know that you are moving that layer in constrained in that direction. So that takes me just in the X and just in the Y and then in the Z. And let me zoom out to show you that. So the Z, as I go into that, and you know you're on this when you see the Z next to the cursor. As I push back with the mouse or to the front, I'm actually moving this layer in 3D space. Now, let's make a move and start building something. What I want to do is to rotate this down. And the easiest way to do that is just to use the tool. So I'm going to grab the W shortcut. And you notice that if I go over the top of this, and I'll zoom in again, you go over the top of this, you're going to see that each one of these things will rotate based on these manipulators as well. Well, what I want to do is I want to rotate this down and create a floor. And I'm going to go all the way down here like that. And I've created myself a floor. Now, V key to go back to the pointer. And notice now that when I pull on these and I go up or down, it's exactly the same as me waving a big hunk of cardboard in front of a camera that's on a tripod. So I'm seeing the underneath of the cardboard and I'm seeing the top of the cardboard. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it right down here, and I might want to make this just a wee bit bigger, so I'm going to stretch this out this way, and I might go out this way because we're going to use this as a floor. And there we go. Now let's zoom back here. Now once we're here, we need to add something else. And really, this is the basis of how you work in After Effects in 3D. It is these manipulators that we've just been introduced to. Now, let's go one more step. Let us add some text. So I'm going to go right up here. I'm going to type in 3D is easy. And I'm going to go back to reset my podcasts. And so I get rid of those extra boxes on the right side. Now, once I have this, it is, in fact, a 2D layer. What I want to do is to go down and make sure that I turn this into 3D as well by clicking on the box. Now, I'm back into 3D, and I can move this text layer the same way as I can move any layer that's 3D just by going up, down, left, and right, or moving it by the Z further away from me or closer to me. Well, let's bring it up about like this. And at this point, I want to introduce in another couple of views, because sometimes it isn't quite easy to work in the view that you're going to render. You might need another view to take a look at how things line up. Well, you've got some views here: front, left, top, back, and a custom view. So let's take a quick look at left. So left really just shows us, and we can move this around like this. Left shows us here, down here, and I'll zoom up. Down here is the ground plane or the floor, and here's my text. So this helps me line this up just because I can easily see the distance between the floor and that. Now also, you've got some other ones here too. you've got one called the custom view. Well, the custom view is really a bird's eye view of what you're working on, and that you can adjust any way you want to. Think of C for the custom view. You hold down the C key and you can turn this any way you want to. It has nothing to do with the active view, which is right here, which is what's going to render. Has nothing to do with that. Just lets you move around and take a look at things and see how things are lining up. It's a place for you to do some work. It is a working view and does not render. Now, how can we help this out? How can we help ourselves? Well, if we go right here and go to two views, you're going to notice that now I have a view on this side that now I will change to the active camera, and a view on this side which is a custom view. So even if I use my C key and turn this around, you notice that what gets rendered doesn't change. This allows me two things. It allows me to manipulate what I want very easily, and it also gives me an opportunity to see what a camera would look like if viewed from this position. So now, once we have this here, let me go up here a little bit. I might raise this. Actually, I'm going to raise this up to about here. All right, about like here. You notice that I've actually gone over the top of the 3D. So if you raise something too high, you can actually make it disappear underneath the floor. Kind of interesting shot there. Now, I'm going to lock that in. I'm going to grab my text, and maybe I'll do this, and maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. That wouldn't hurt either. Maybe about like that. Now, what we know about now is the X, the Y, and the Z. So let's use that, and we'll lock this right here. We'll use that when we talk about lights and cameras. Now, I'm just using my scroll wheel here, by the way, to zoom in and out of these things. Now, let's take a look at introducing a camera or a light. So let's go File, not File, but we're going to go to Light. I've right mouse clicked, by the way, in the comp window. Spotlight, and we'll leave the default settings the way they are. And you'll notice that what I have right now is this great view in both views of what is this going to look like from the rendered version, and what is this going to look like from my little perspective view that I'm kind of playing around with here. Well, what I've noticed is it's just not far enough back. So let's just grab the light, we'll grab the Z, and we'll just drag it back. Now that looks pretty cool, right? And then maybe I need to move it over. So I can work in both of these to make it easy for me to do what I need to do. So I can bounce back from this view to this view and say, you know what, I like this a little further back. Let me grab that light, and I'll move this back a little bit more. And I've noticed that the floor here seems to be cut off. If you can't see it, the floor here seems to be cut off. So what I need to do is to add a little bit to that floor. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to extend this floor a little bit further out, making it a little bit longer. And now there's a nice fall off here, and you can see that in this view over here. Now, what can I do next? Well, lights in the real world cast shadows. So let's take a look at what this 3D text can do. If we twirl this down, and let me drag this up just to make sure you can see everything I'm doing. Down in this area right here, this is where you're going to get your material options for anything that has a 3D cube next to it. And these material options, on the most basic part, turn off shadows. So you can see that if I hit one time, bing, like that, all of a sudden I have a 3D shadow. So let's pop out and take a look at what that looks like. Well, I think it looks pretty darn good. I've got a 3D shadow right here. It's looking pretty nice. I can adjust it simply by raising or lowering this piece right here, or by introducing a camera and actually spinning something around by using a camera. Now, if I go right here while I'm in this view, and let me back out again, and I use my C key, which allows me to rotate around in this view, I can twist this around like this and say, you know what? This would probably be a pretty cool animation to be able to go from like here to here. That looks pretty cool. So what I think I'll do then is introduce a camera now. Since we've learned that lights have an X, a Y, and a Z, and also another interesting part, which is this guy, which is the look at point. And that's right here, this little target right there. That's the look at point. So as I move the look at point, you can see that the light is responding to it just as though you were pointing a light or a flashlight. Now, with that in mind, let's go down here. I'm going to lock away all of this and turn this off, and I'm going to now add a camera. So let's add a camera to this. New camera. We'll just go with this default setting, and now we have a camera. Now, if you notice over here, and let me zoom out, you have what really looks like a camera. And if you look at the back side, it looks just like a camera. You also notice you have these same manipulators that you had before, and also each one of these corners show you exactly what the camera is seeing. So, if we use this as a way to manipulate the camera, by simply dragging the camera by the camera body in the back, I can, and you have to click inside, there we go, you can drag this any way you need to, and you can see what's going to happen from in to out. However, this floats your boat. So what I might want to see is, well, let me think, if I drag the camera like this, and the beauty of this again is being able to see what's going on here. Let's take this down a little bit and move this over so I can enlarge my view. Now, I want to set some keyframes for this. Well, keyframes in cameras are just like keyframes in other layers. Here's my position. I'll set a keyframe for that. I'll go out about 4 seconds, and I'm just going to grab the back of this camera, and I'm going to drag it to the right. And maybe I'll go up like this, and maybe I'll pull it out just a little bit. Like that. There you go. Now, if you haven't noticed, look what we have right here. This is the path that the camera is taking. So that if I want to create a curved path, it's very easy for me to use the Bezier curve handles that are on the curves, similar to anything you would see traditionally in a normal two-dimensional keyframe. Now, let's back out a minute here. Go back over here, and if you scrub through the timeline, you'll notice that you can see what's happening here as the rendered file and what's happening on this side as this little custom view that allows you to see the camera moving and the result of what the camera is seeing. Well, I'm thinking this is looking pretty darn good. So remember, the only thing you need to remember is what? The X, the Y, and the Z. These guys right here. This is what's important. Also, what else? The look at point. So whether it's a camera or it is a light, the look at point determines what the camera is looking at. So, by using those handles, the X, the Y, and the Z, the look at point, whether it is a camera or it is a light, which happens over here, and you can see right here, there's my light, and here is the X, Y, Z, and the look at point. So remember, as I move this around, the camera records what's going on. So I can animate the light, I can animate the camera based on X, Y, Z, and the look at point. So, whatever you like to do in 3D, you now have the opportunity to try it out. So, don't hold back. X, Y, Z, the point of interest or look at point, is the place to manipulate this and have some good time. So, thanks for watching, and again, if you're looking for a little more on this and maybe some integration of a 3D project into After Effects from, say, something like Cinema 4D, the Maxon Tour, the Power Integration Tour at tour.maxon3d.com is the place for you to go. So again, 3D layers, X, Y, and Z, and the point of interest is what it's all about. And thanks for watching.